Hi, talents. Hope that you're well. This is predominantly for Regan because he has a student that's coming in, but this is for everyone, all teachers, because you're all going to have to deal with this sometime where someone's going to come in with some vocal disorders. So hang on tight. I'm going to go deep here. Get your pens out, take some notes. So I'm going to address the matter that's at hand here, which is to do with Regan's student, and then I will branch off into vocal nodules and hemorrhages and things like that. Regan has got a new student, and I'll just read the notes here that have already been submitted to Regan. Wants to improve his vocal health. Had a cyst removed from his throat 1 month ago, and his voice isn't as controlled. That's it. Okay. So that's the main thing. So, guys, I just want to explain the difference between a cyst, and it's very, very important that if you're dealing with someone that has a vocal disorder or nodule, that I normally ask for the surgeon or the doctor's report, and I can actually show you some photos of the surgeon's report and photos of Clint Bode from the Butterfly Effect when he damaged his vocal cords. So I normally ask for those so I know exactly what it is, because there's a huge difference. They're completely different between a cyst, a nodule, a hemorrhage, and a callus. Okay, I'm going to go through all of those here. I'm going to deal with Regan's thing here first because I know that he will need some help with it. A cyst is... Now, first and foremost, improve his vocal health. So let's just get into that firstly. Vocal hygiene is very, very important. And the number one point with vocal hygiene is ultimately warming up the vocal cords, having the right support with proper diaphragmatic breathing and breath support, number 2. Number 3 is building up stamina and technique. Number 4, which is probably the most important, is making sure that people are singing in the right key and in a tone that best suits their voice. Some girls can't do screaming. Some girls can. Even with guys, some guys can scream, some guys can't. So, work within the student's capabilities safely. That's the first thing. And then on top of that, general health with what they're doing. Right amounts of sleep, not excessive amounts of alcohol, drugs, right food, and food that's not going to irritate the vocal cords, hot, spicy food in the evenings that's going to cause reflux, or booze at the end of the night, or whatever it might be, especially dairy products, which once, I'm not quite sure if you know how hot your large intestine is, but it basically boils and breaks down food. So if you drink milk, it basically ferments, and if you burp it back up, it will burn your vocal cords. With most gastric juice that you'll burp up will burn your vocal cords. It's designed to break down meat and very, very hard substances. So you burp it up, you'll burn your throat. Okay, so that quickly takes care of that. So let's go on to Regan's thing here, which is a cyst. So I'm going to clearly explain what a cyst is. A cyst is basically the vocal cord glands becoming clogged. That's what happens, and they will develop a cyst. So I'm going to say it again. A cyst is the vocal cord glands becoming blocked, and this is generally caused, as a general rule, from phonotrauma. Phonotrauma is as if you see something horrific, it will create these or block the vocal cord glands. So this happens in people that, the police force that see horrific things, people that work in, mortuaries and different things like that. It can also just happen in one instance, being involved in a car accident, seeing horrific things, whatever it may be. That's generally what it's caused from, but they can just become clogged if you are dealing with a lot of stress, or you're not in great shape. That's generally how it happens. Okay, so Regan will have to basically make sure that he goes through the procedure here, and Regan will make sure that he knows that this is a cyst and not a nodule. They're the two main things you're going to be dealing with. Nodules, let's just reiterate this. Nodules are what most singers, judges, PE teachers, bartenders develop, and I'll talk to you about that in a second. But let's go on this. So Regan, you have to first and foremost have a chat to him and find out that it was actually a cyst and not a nodule or a hemorrhage. Once that is established, you have to then you have to ask him about his general health and fitness. This guy's obese. Well, there's not much we can help him besides, get behind him and say, run! But no, seriously. He needs to improve his health. Needs to get right amounts of sleep, not on the booze, not on the drugs, no reflux. Main thing is the first thing is you have to get him onto diaphragmatic breathing on the second week. He needs to have support, needs to make sure he knows how to do this. By the third week, he should really be doing the dual breathing. By week 4, the science of breathing. So very, very important you get him onto this first thing in the second week. First lesson, warm up. Basically, where you're going to go over warm-ups. You need to tell him as well too. He's got to do sit-ups, bridges and crunches 2 to 3 times a week because he needs a support. You've got to warm his voice up properly. So ultimately starting with the exercise. The exercise doesn't work, a humming exercise. And then after that, the wee falsetto exercise, melodically wee, not dynamic. Wee, wee, wee is going to cause too much dynamics with the vocal cords. And then ultimately after that, probably just an art sounding scale, coming down art, starting out very low in his range and going up high. And this doesn't all have to be crammed into the first lesson. You can space all this out however much time it takes. But the bottom line is that you have a really honest chat with him and he needs to tell you what's happened, how these cysts may have occurred. We don't need to know if he was the way he was traumatized. We just know, they developed, he's had them removed. And then you need to just keep on leading in with that. Ultimately, he did say here, his voice isn't as controlled. Bottom line with control is support, diaphragmatic breathing. That's the main point, and just work in small increments with him with control. 1, 3, 5, 3, 1. Controlling small movements. Trills, movements like that. So that takes care of Regan there. Hopefully that will help Regan out. Any questions, Regan? Please ring 000. Okay, now, a nodule. A nodule is your most common vocal disorder for singers, judges, auctioneers, and bar attendants. Mainly bar attendants and then singers. They're the ones that I've done rehab with the most because they're screaming over loud music and people the whole night. And a nodule is basically like a wart that develops on your vocal cords. It sometimes will generally upset the other side of the vocal cord and you may get dual vocal nodules. Once these developed, obviously the vocal quality diminishes around that area. It'll go generally miss like that because the chords can't come together with this nodule or callus there. A nodule is like a wart. A callus is smaller. Okay, a callus is like when you work in the garden and those calluses develop on your hand, and it's actually hard tissue scarring. They develop more harder and so it's just a smaller version. So let me just reiterate that. Nodule, large, looks like a wart. Callus, small, build up of a generally a larger surface area on the vocal cord. Nodule, smaller surface area. Like I said, looks like a bubble or a wart is the best way to describe it. You can go on the internet and have a look at these if you want. And with that, what they generally do is you go to an ENT, they normally diagnose it, they go in and they whip them out with laser, which is very safe and very effective. It normally cauterizes as well too, meaning the laser actually seals the wound there. And as a rule, they can generally get back to sing within generally 3 weeks. If they're a singer, they really need to sort of push it quick. You can generally get back to 3 weeks, but it's really up to the ENT to give the thumbs up and say, yep, you're ready to go and start rehab. And then ultimately you just make sure vocal health, because they've developed from abuse, not warming up, screaming, yelling, them banging together at a very coarse and aggressive manner to develop that. And then you just have to go through technique, support, posture, and not repeating the same thing. Also, telemarketers also develop this as well too. These are people I've done all rehab with. Okay. I think that pretty much covers it. Hemorrhage. Hemorrhage develops very quickly. Hemorrhage is exactly the same as a blister on the back of your heel when you buy new runners and you're going for a jog. Exactly the same thing happens with the vocal cords, meaning you haven't sung for a long time, you've done stuff, or you're out of condition. You go into rehearsal or whatever you go and do, and you go and do an hour, the vocal cords will swell up, you will develop a blister. And then if the next day, it can even burst the blister by talking the next day, or if you go and sing or try to do that, you'll actually burst the blister, which is the same as the blister that's developed on the heel. The skin will come off, it will develop a concaved area on the vocal cords. This will bleed and hemorrhage. This is not good. This is the worst thing that you can do, because what normally happens is you will develop a callus if this heals up. And even worse, if you keep on doing it and it gets an infection, you will develop hard tissue scarring, which will be a callus, which is a hard section of vocal cords where the vocal cords don't go in and vibrate properly and correctly again. The vocal cords will actually stop working around this area, and I have had people that have come to me with this. Very hard to get the vocal cords back up and running. They actually have to have injections into the cords of, I think they put cellulite in there to try to get it supple and moving again. I have had people that, and actually some people with major label recording contracts had this done. So yes, I hope that covers that there. Again, the rehab process of that is very slow and arduous, and you've got to make sure that they're getting the thumbs up from an ENT before you start rehab with someone who's had a hemorrhage. Last one, and this is just a little bit of a side thing here. Tonsils, people having tonsillitis numerous times. It's a pain in the ass for the person that's getting tonsillitis. I had it when I was very young, had them whipped out straight away when I was in choir, very early on when I was about 6 or 7, because I was getting repeat bouts of it. Instead of getting a common cold, I was getting tonsillitis. Tonsils are either side of your uvula. So if you don't know what your uvula is, you must know if you had lessons with me. It's a little dangly thing that hangs down the back of your throat. I call it a punching bag. Tonsils hang either side of that, the arc there, either side of your uvula. These will and are only designed to take a hammering when you get a cold. Their purpose, your tonsils are designed so that no other infection goes anywhere else to your ears, chest, whatever it is. These things get infected and take the beating so that you can survive longer. 40 million years ago. Now they're a pain in the ass. So if you normally get tonsillitis a couple of times, they will whip them out when you're young. It's better to do them when you're young. But again, now they can whip them out with lasers, bang, cauterized, ready to go. Generally in 2 to 3 weeks with that. The big thing with rehab with that is you got to make sure that you want to stretch their mouth, or even if it's a singer, you want to make sure they're doing some stretching exercises straight after the operation on the day, so that these stitches that they've got, or the cauterization, doesn't pull in the skin and get real tight so they can't open up their mouth and possibly adjust their tone later on. So some light stretching exercises. We don't want to definitely split the cauterization, but we want to definitely make sure we've got the mouth going. I think that pretty much sort of covers it there. Tonsillitis, generally, once it heals up pretty quick with cauterization. Generally 2 to 3 weeks, they can sort of start back. It's got nothing to do with the vocal cords. That's why these guys that have had this can generally get into it pretty quickly. They can even start doing some really light stuff a week in, because it's a mile away from the vocal cords. Everyone should know, if they've had lessons with me, where the vocal cords are. Very low in the throat. They pretty much sit on top of the bronchi tube, which is a tube that takes the air down to the lungs. And then again, when people have had their tonsils taken out, what they will generally have is they'll have more ailments of everything else because the tonsils aren't there taking a beating. So you'll generally get sinusitis, pharyngitis, other things like that. I think that pretty much covers it. Any questions, please ring 000. Thank you. Bye-bye.